In 1936, the year I was born, New England suffered its worst flood within memory. Much of downtown Peterborough was underwater. A couple years later, we suffered the worst hurricane on record, and right in the middle of that storm, there was a terrible fire in Peterborough. These two events were part of the mythology of my growing up. There was, I was told, never a flood like 36 or a wind like 38. Well, you know, the sad fact is most of the people who used to talk to me about such things are gone now, and I miss them. I wish I had paid more attention. Well, tonight we're going to pay some attention. Welcome to New Hampshire Remembered Part 3. It's not much of an island, just a spit in the middle of the Connecticut River off Brattleboro, Vermont. And as the entire Connecticut River is officially located in the state of New Hampshire, this tiny bit of land is actually in Hinsdale, New Hampshire. The piece of land I'm talking about is there on the right, where the large bridge ends. Only about an acre of land. But you know, a long time ago, back before the power company put a dam in downstream, back before the floods came, that little piece of island was much larger. In fact, it was, by comparison with today, huge, almost 60 acres. A lot of history happened here. And for a dozen years, something glorious happened here. And that thing that happened that was glorious was called Island Park.
It was a three-story arrangement, actually 2.5, made of wood, and it was designed to have 2-story entertainments, bowling or other activities on the bottom floor, a ballroom, dance floor, a soda fountain, a veranda, and adjoining a grandstand seating 1,200 people. Labor Day, 1911, 3,200 people crowded the island. It was billed as the largest crowd ever to watch a baseball game in that area throughout history. It was a 2-0 game in which the Brattleboro Islanders won. The keen pitcher, a fellow named Smith, he only gave up 3 hits, but the winning pitcher, John Bosk, only gave up 2 hits. Both runs were scored on the sacrifice flies, and several times the tumult in the crowd was such a din that people spoke about it for years afterwards. And to culminate, the game was so exciting that a keen bettor bet all his money for the keen team to win. And he was, when he ran out of money, the Brattleboro people, oh, can't you have any more money to bet in this team? So he's like, oh, what the hell? I got my hat and my coat and my hat. So he bet them and lost them as well as his money. It was uncertain who would win up to the last out in the last inning of the last game of the season. It was that extraordinary. Yeah.
Now about the island. In the very early days of Brattleboro, it was called Goodhue's Island. In those days, it was farming acreage. The soil there was rich, rich because the island would flood regularly, which is why the farming was so good. It also, of course, was the reason why farming was finally abandoned on the island. Too much flooding. Also, there was a toll house there at the island, collecting bridge fees from the covered bridge. Now, the next great use for Goodhue's Island was as a staging area and camp for the roustabout loggers that helped float millions of board feet of timber down the river.
And that was another source of roistering by the loggers, who would be on the island for some period of time.
Roistering?
Roistering. Okay. Roustabouts, how's that?
Roustabouts roistered?
Roustabouts roistering. And they would, that would be the feature of the summer. And the island had gotten a bad reputation as a result of that.
Now, it turns out there was also a tavern out there for the roisterous. And because the island was in New Hampshire, the Vermont authorities were powerless to police it. For years, all the ministers in Brattleboro preached against it. But in 1910, the Island Park promoters set about not only building an entertainment complex, but also cleaning up the reputation of the island. The new island would have only family entertainment. No booze, no immorality, and certainly no roistering.
It was a popular dance spot, popular night spot. They played music there. There was vaudeville. There were motion pictures projected onto a screen, baseball games, circuses, dances inside, bowling underneath, boating outside. It was the place to be on a summer in the Connecticut Valley in the 19-teens and 1920s.
For 16 years, Island Park was the focus of the community, and not only in the summertime. There were regattas and circuses and band concerts, and even President William Howard Taft once appeared on the field. It seemed they had thought of everything. But what wasn't thought of was the new Vermont Light and Power Company dam just downstream at Vernon, Vermont. See, the pavilion had been built above the 100-year flood mark, but the dam had raised the ante, and a series of floods took their toll. And then in 1927, one last flood proved to be too much, and the decision was made. The pavilion was torn down. Then 9 years later, in 1936, the greatest flood in memory eroded away nearly the entire island. And today, where couples danced and bands played, where loggers camped, and where presidents orated, where circuses opened, and where baseball games to break your heart were played, today there is almost nothing. Just a small piece of land and a few yards of pavement. And Island Park is just a memory.